Welcome to Leadership Speaking Radio, the podcast for leaders and changemakers who want to learn how to communicate with impact, authenticity, and human connection to their peers, teams, and customers in order to build better relationships, better their bottom lines, and become better leaders. My name is Dr. Laura Penn. I'm the founder of the Leadership Speaking School, and I'm your host. Visit the website theleadershipspeakingschool.com in order to find out more about how we can support you to show up as the best version of yourself every time you speak. Now, let's get straight into our topic. Welcome back, everybody. So nice to see you again. If you're on video, I see you. If you're in the ear, I hope you hear me. I am just so excited to be back here with the next episode in this new season, Season 5, which I am calling How to Be of Service to Your Audience. And this, folks, is episode number 50 in the scheme of things. Oh, I hope that you are ready for what I'm going to download into your hearts and minds today. I want to go in to the topic of what I promised you in the last episode, episode 49, which is to begin the journey of learning the craft, to learn the techniques, the tools of what it takes to communicate with impact, authenticity, and human connection. I hope that you've got your pen and paper ready and that you are wearing your thinking caps, because now we are entering the work. And here's how it's going to start. I want to begin with a little self-assessment quiz. Yeah. I want you to take stock of where you are in space and time as a leadership communicator by answering some yes or no questions that I have for you. So I'm going to read them on my list here in front of me. And in your mind's eye, I want you to answer yes or no to each question. So the question to start things off with is to ask yourself, when delivering a talk, do I, and now is the first question, have ample time to prepare what I will say and how I will say it? Yes or no? When preparing and delivering a talk, do I spend proportionately less time preparing what I will say and more time rehearsing how to say it? Yes or no? Do I perform an audience evaluation survey to determine who my audience is and what their needs and interests are? Yes or no? Do I tailor the content around my central topic to support what my audience cares about? Yes or no? Do I include stories and anecdotes in my talk which are relevant and interesting to my audience? Yes or no? Do I integrate moments of audience participation where I can involve my audience directly? Yes or no? Do I warm up before I speak to help me appear more relaxed and at ease? Yes or no? Do I use vocal variety to keep my audience engaged? Yes or no? Do I use open body language when I speak to suggest that I am approachable and ready to engage with my audience? Yes or no? And finally, do I have awareness about the body language of my audience as they are listening to me? Yes or no? Well. Do you have more yes answers or more no answers to these questions? You see, if you have more yes answers, it means that you are already a master of leadership communication. You already have all the bells and whistles clanging because you know the tools and the techniques and, more importantly, the craft of how to communicate with impact, authenticity, and human connection. But if you said no to most of the answers, then you need to be here right now. You need to be listening to what I am downloading to you right now because you are missing fundamental elements of the craft of leadership communication that will help to enhance how you show up in front of audiences when you speak to them. My guess is that you are probably in the category of having answered more no's. Very few people are in the category of answering yeses. These are professional speakers. These are people who have been working in the craft for ages. And these are people who have written books about it. And they're rare. But those are the people who are teaching, how to do this. I'm one of those people. And I am teaching you here what it means to speak to your audiences. And I want to go in now that we've done this assessment. You see, we have to start here. We have to understand what the baseline is, where you're coming from. I do this in my intensive 3-day program, Leadership Speaking Core. On day 1, hour 1, we are going into this version of self-assessment because we need to understand where we are in order to know where we're going. And I have everybody do what I call, in a metaphor, unpack their suitcase of the tools and skills that they already have so that we lay them all out in front of us. And then there they are. And for the 3 days that we're working together intensely, and there are only 6 people in this group, these days are going to be spent putting those things in order that are in the suitcase, removing the things that don't work, adding things that are needed, getting things organized, repacking the suitcase, closing it up, and leaving on day 3, ready to emerge as the best version of themselves as speakers. And in this version, in the podcast, I think it's really powerful to start with an assessment like this because this is where you are. And this is where I want to meet you, where you are. So the work we have to do together is to get your no answers to yeses. And that's why I'm so excited about this season, because this is the season where I want to go in deep to the craft elements and harvest those tools that you need to elevate and heighten how you're communicating with your peers, teams, and customers. So let's keep going in. I want next to give you a definition of 2 words that I keep using over and over and over again. And I think it's really important for us to just press the pause button for a moment and for me to tell you the meaning of these 2 words so that we are on the same page together. The words, of course, are leadership communication. And here is my definition of those 2 words. Leadership communication I define as an elevated form of public speaking where the speaker consciously and authentically connects with the hearts and minds of their audience by using specific speechcraft tools, which comprise key elements of content creation and delivery performance. Really important to just pause and define that for you before we move on. Because inside of this definition are important points of information. But in particular, I want to share the last part. These 2 categories, content creation and delivery performance. You see, these are 2 buckets, 2 parts that make the whole of leadership communication. The elements of creating content, that is what you are going to say, and the elements of how to deliver that content, that is how you are going to say it. And in going in deeper to the craft elements of what we're doing in season 5, I'm going to take you on a behind-the-scenes tour of each of these buckets. How to create content that serves the needs and interests of your audience, and how to deliver that content so that it lives in the room, and more importantly, in the hearts and minds of the people that you are talking to. So we're going to start our work and our focus in the content bucket. This is what you are going to say. And to enter this level of work, I want to start by sharing the red thread of leadership communication. And if you've heard any episodes in this podcast before, you will already know these words. But if you are new to this podcast, here they are, perhaps for the first time, which is that the red thread of leadership speaking, leadership communication, is that it's not about you. It's about your audience. And this small, short sentence is at the heart and at the root of every tool and technique that I teach. It is the river that runs underneath everything that is related to leadership communication. And it is the flag that flies above speaking with impact, authenticity, and human connection. So, how do we unpack that? What does it mean for it not to be about you? It's about your audience. It means that it's not the me show. It's the we show. It means that every time that you are speaking in front of whoever you're talking to, it's not about you, it's about them. It means that the compass angle for, where the information and where the bright light should be shining is not on you. It's at them. You are there to serve the needs and interests of your audience. You are there to give them something, not the other way around. They are not there to give you anything. They are there to receive from you. And oh gosh, you've heard me say this too, but this is why I love the word presentation. Yeah, because it has the hidden word present in it, like gift. You are there to give your audience a gift. They have shown up, taken time out of their day, are spending effort and energy to be there so that they can receive something from you. It's not the other way around. So this is really important as the root of all things leadership communication. And we need to understand this because this is the ecosystem of everything that I'm going to teach you. Because everything in that bucket of content, for example, and everything in that bucket of delivery performance is related to this red thread. So let's get in now even further into the content topic. That's the first bucket. And in order to create content, now that you have the red thread, there's another thing that you need to know. You need to know that you need to know who your audience is first, right? That's how we can create the best content, is by knowing who we're creating it for. So this is where you're going to pull back and ideally do what I call an audience evaluation survey. This takes some work. This is about rolling up your shirt sleeves and really making it count so that you can harvest the information that you need about your audience so that you can create content for them that serves their needs and interests. So there are some key questions to ask yourself about your audience that you need to do in order to even begin the process of creating content. And the first thing that you need to know is, who is your audience, right? So who are the people that are going to be there? What are their demographics? That is, how old are they? What is the ratio of men to women? Where are they from? What is their level of education? What are their needs and interests, right, in general? And how can what you are talking about serve their needs and interests? Another thing that you need to know about related to your audience is, how much do they know about your topic already? Yeah, are they beginners? Are they intermediate? Or are they advanced? So where you come in, with speaking about your topic is going to be relevant to what level they are at. And then finally, another area that you need to think about in your audience evaluation survey is, what is their general outlook? In other words, what are they bringing into the game already? Yeah? What do they think about the topic that you're talking about already? What is their level of understanding about that topic? And how can you add information to what they already know to help them and to serve them and to help them to benefit from what you are talking about? So these questions are comprehensive, and at the end of answering them, you will have a really good picture about who your audience is. And through this picture, you will be able to serve them better. You will be able to create content that is specific to who they are and what they need and what interests them. Does this make sense so far? Good, because we're going to continue. This is step 1. And I suggest doing this step for what I call medium to high stakes talks. So this is not your 10-minute staff update scenario. We're all too busy to do this kind of audience evaluation survey for a group of people that you already know and it's something regular. No, this is for medium to high stakes. What does that mean? It means that these are talks, or this is a talk that you're going to give where you have skin in the game, where there are people there who are evaluating how you're doing. Or maybe this is going to be something that is filmed, and when you Google your name, oh my goodness, there it is, this video of you talking. That's pretty high stakes, because anything that is filmed and put online for the world to see, for example, is going to be there for the rest of your living life on Earth and beyond for who knows how long. So that's really high stakes. So you need to really work at doing an audience evaluation survey for talks that are medium to high stakes. Anyway, moving on. Once you have done this survey and you know who your audience is, now you can roll up your shirt sleeves, get your cup of coffee ready, and start creating content. And I don't know how you create content. I don't know if you type it out, if you're sitting down. I don't know if you walk and talk, which is a technique I love. And in a later episode, I'll probably talk about that. Whatever your method for creating content, now that you have a picture of who your audience is, it's like you have a bullseye. You know where to direct your arrow. And another tool to help you to get that arrow into the red circle of the bullseye is to do what I call creating an intention. This is the second thing I want to tell you here in the toolbox of tools that you're learning about the craft of leadership communication. Setting an intention is about being really clear, like laser focused clear on why you are there in that room that day, speaking to that audience that day, etc. And the way that you harvest what your intention is, your modus operandi, is you ask yourself this question. As a result of my talk, what do I want my audience to feel? And you think of not a whole sentence or a paragraph of content to answer that question, but you think of one word. Like, I want my audience to feel driven, or I want my audience to feel motivated, right? You get this? So let's say that your word is driven. You want your audience to feel driven. Well, this is going to help you in your content creation, because you are now going to be creating content that has that word in mind. What does that mean? It means you're going to be sharing anecdotes and stories that are examples of being driven. It means that you are going to use vocabulary and words that touch this idea of being driven. It means that you're going to, in your descriptions and in your narrative, focus on this feeling of being driven. Does this make sense so far? So you remember this word by writing it on a Post-it note and putting that Post-it note really close to you, next to you where you are creating your content. And keep looking over at that word to make sure that you're on track, that you are serving that word. Folks, this is a way to get super clear about you creating your content, to have that intention in mind. And this, combined with your audience evaluation, these are two powerful tools now in the craft of you creating content that lives in the hearts and minds of your audience and that serves their needs and interests. So there's one more thing that I want to share with you in this episode today, related to this bucket that we are dipped inside of content creation. And that is to make every speech or talk, or whatever you call it, a dialogue, not a monologue. Now, for those of you who have listened to this podcast over the years, you know this already. You've heard me say this. But I want to say it in the kind of stream of consciousness that I am in right now in this podcast episode about creating content, because it fits in here. It's really important that you harness this way of thinking in the creation phase of your content. So let me go deeper. To make your talk a dialogue, not a monologue, is about creating content that has more dimensions than a one-note monologue, that has an invitation somehow for the audience to participate. Now, they can participate in a couple of different ways. They can participate in thinking thoughts. So you might be what I call shaking their tree and making them think differently, or disrupting thoughts or habits that they might have. That's one way to make it participatory. Another way to make it participatory and for the audience to be engaged in this, what we're calling dialogue, is of course to ask them questions outright, where they raise their hand and answer the question. That's the perfect version of a dialogue. Getting this amazing feedback loop of you saying something and then the audience says or reacts somehow, and then you give more and they give, and it goes back and forth, and it sort of energizes itself and it keeps itself going, and it becomes this loop, this feedback loop, this dialogue. This is how you make your talk a dialogue, not a monologue. Engaging your audience, making it about them, creating participatory elements that they can really move into, embody, and become one with. When you are doing this with your content, this is what is bringing a heartbeat to the sound of what you say. This is what is creating sparks in the room that people are feeling on a visceral level. And you are now speaking the language of humanity and really having a conversation with each other. That's another way, by the way, to enter that way of thinking, to make every talk a dialogue, not a monologue, to think of every presentation as a conversation. And when you do this, it just opens the opportunities for you to let your audience into your world. And once they're invited in there, once you're vibing in there together, then they open. You see it in the look in their eyes. You see it by them leaning forward. You see it by the smiles on their faces or them nodding their heads. Now they're inviting you into theirs. So there's that feedback loop again. And you're creating content now that has energy and that moves forward. Wow. So that is my download for today. Some valuable golden nuggets, I hope you feel as I do, that this is. Man, this is the kind of stuff that is a part of the craft. This isn't everyday stuff that you find, written in books, or that you learned in high school rhetoric. This is the kind of stuff that I've created over my years of working with leaders, teams, and change makers around the world, understanding that these are the elements that help them to succeed in creating content. So I'm sharing that with you in this episode, and get ready for more. In the coming episodes, there's going to be more to share, and more of us entering the depths and deliciousness of this craft of leadership communication together. So let me wrap this episode now and say that I hope that you have enjoyed this episode as much as I have enjoyed delivering it. Subscribe now to Leadership Speaking Radio to be sure not to miss an episode. And don't forget to visit the website, theleadershipspeakingschool.com, to learn more about how we can support you to show up as the best version of yourself every time that you communicate with your peers teams and customers. And don't forget to check out the brand new book that I have published on Kindle, on Amazon, which the work that I am talking about here and the craft elements that we are learning about comes from. It is called Nowhere Left to Hide: Leadership Communication Skills that every leader of the digital age must know. And this book is available on every Amazon platform out there. So we're going deeper into this work, and you know now where to get it. That's all for now. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.